Welcome to a community built of tomorrow's business leaders. Hey guys, I'm William Freitas, and this is the Socius podcast. Julian Parisi, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. We've never met before, so it's exciting to delve into these topics, brand new and find out a little bit more about you. Our podcast is a little bit different, as everyone knows, that we like to dive into who the business leader is, what had them be to where they are today. So I'm excited to sort of dive into that with you, mate. So without further ado, please introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and what led you to be where you are today.
Okay, great, thank you. Julian Parisi, as you mentioned, managing director now I put on my title of Parisi Sydney. We are a business in fresh produce, so quite simply we sell bananas for a living. For
all the monkeys.
That's right. So my family traditionally were retailers for many years, since the 50s actually. So I'm third generation now. Today we are no longer call ourselves simply retailers, but we stem all the way through the vertical chain. So, we've got our fingers in the growing process. Logistics is a big part of our business through our wholesale supply. The wholesale business represents an overweight position of what we do with regards to supplying restaurants, hotels, prior to COVID, cruise ships when they were around, and we spend a lot of time with chefs. So we're not just a supplier of produce in the sense of the product arrives at their door. When chefs are changing menus, when they're introducing a new menu or opening a new venue, they'll consult us based on seasonality. So we've taken a new approach in the way in which we deliver on wholesale of supply of fruit and veg. And separate to that, we still operate retail businesses. So Parisi Sydney we've got a store down at Sydney Fish Market. Parisi in Rose Bay, although it still is called Parisi Food Hall, we no longer operate that store.
Okay.
It's great business. They do an amazing job there, the current operators.
Yeah, my local.
Your local, yeah. It's more of a supermarket now these days.
Yeah.
But separate to that, then we've got Barangaroo, and we had a couple other sites in the city that due to COVID we just couldn't come to commercial terms with landlords, so we've chosen to vacate those. And then our online business. So the online business is a big part of what we do. Gifting is so corporate gifting, off the back of that, has grown and has really strengthened our brand. And catering. So catering to corporates. It's all B2B. Very small part of it is business is ourselves, the consumers. It's a lot of corporate catering, Monday to Friday type of business, and we've found a hole in that market whereby just if you're sitting in a meeting and you're used to eating a beautiful nectarine at home, and then you're sitting in a meeting and you're having a poor nectarine, there's a problem. So often we've found that, a lot of the executives who are, living over, for example, in the North Shore or in the East, they're used to eating a good product, and they weren't getting that in a catering sense. So we found that those executives were reaching out for a better alternative, and we found a hole in that market, and today it represents a good part of our business too.
Yeah, perfect. And so obviously, just to take us back to where it all began, this is a family-run business, really, like you said, third-gen retailer, which you've now then transitioned into wholesale and supply, now online, and we'll delve into. I'm keen to sort of find out how big that online business is and how it's growing and where do you think the vision is for the future. But take us back to how it all began, who started it, and where did you fit into that?
Yeah, sure. Grandfather arrived with one shoe, a suitcase, and not much else in the 50s, early 50s, from Italy, from a little island called Lipari. He arrived here with his brother, and what do Italians do? They go into fresh produce. So he owned it was a milk bar, a very small retail outlet in South Strathfield. From there, he had progressed into a bigger store in Burwood, whereby my father had joined him. Years had passed, they'd done well in that business, and years had passed, they believed there was an opportunity in the eastern suburbs to recreate a beautiful offering in fresh produce. But those days, fruit and veg businesses were customer facing. Now, when you walk into Louis Vuitton, for example, you traditionally don't just pick up a bag on your own.
Yeah.
There's a shop attendant who will take the bag off the shelf, show you inside the bag, and that's how fruit and veg businesses were, back in those days. So it wasn't self-service.
Wow.
So the family were very well known for their customer service and of course the quality.
So I'm really intrigued into this, because how does an industry eradicate customer service? I mean, what were your thoughts back? I mean, I'm not sure if you were around back then as to when that happened, but how does that even happen?
Yeah.
Because customer service is paramount, right? And
Absolutely.
you would think that's what made you be so successful. Parisi was great at doing it.
Yep.
How did that, completely go missing?
Yeah. I think in order to move from a business that, let's call it, had a glass ceiling, in order to scale a business and turn it into an institution whereby you can improve on turnover, do better on margins, as in reduce your margins, you need to create efficiencies within the business. And a decision was made by my father and his two brothers to move away from the sort of handheld type of service and go into self-service. At that time, there were not many businesses at all who were offering the self-service approach. Credit to my father and his two brothers. They took the plunge, and and it paid off. They moved from a very small site into a much larger site on Dover Road. They quadrupled the turnover within 3 years. It was a great success, and it was all driven on quality of product was paramount, and the service went with it. I.e., the clients were walking around with their trolleys at that point, but there was always that recommendation, advice of product. Don't buy this. It's going out of season. You need to be buying this product. Don't buy flat beans at the moment, because they're going to be hard on the inside. You need to be buying round beans, for example. So that continuous advice is that's the service.
It never left. Yeah,
that never left. Exactly. It was more about the client then needing to put the product into a trolley, and because the trolleys were of a larger size, their basket size could turn from a $50 basket to a $250 basket. Yeah.
It's I guess really innovative, because right now we can't view it any differently. As we know it, everything is self-serve. You go to Woolies, you go to Coles, any fresh fruit produce, it's all self-serve. So it's an interesting and ballsy decision to make back then, to completely get rid of customer service to scale the business, no doubt, and to their success, which was fantastic. And at what age did you join the business? So obviously they came through that, they scaled it.
Yeah.
When did you join the business?
So I'm 34 now, and when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I was there. I was standing on a milk crate putting oranges into an orange juice machine. So I've known the business since I was a kid.
Yep.
I've seen it grow from not much success into a very successful food and beverage business. Like a lot of European immigrants, that my parents were very focused on ensuring that I was educated. So I finished school and went to university and did a commerce degree. It was actually a com law degree, but I dropped the law after 6 weeks because the reading got to me. So just continued, finished it up with a com degree, and towards the back end of the degree, I had to make a decision. It was going to be, do I go down the path of the family business without any other experience and almost pigeonhole myself into, following footsteps without the experience to then jump back into the family business and explode the business in a different dimension. Because I'm all about change.
Yeah.
Change is paramount.
Change is a constant, no doubt.
Oh, unbelievable. You really need... I'm a big believer of needing to accept and move with times, because, as we evolve as people, as the next generation comes on, they're always going to have different views, and technology is pushing us in different directions. So I believe you really need to be able to feel when there's going to be a change in people's behaviours, and you need to go with it. I think that's the difference between global brands that exist for 200-300 years versus a sort of a small generational business that's only around for 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, and being ahead of the curve, right? Being able to judge when it's going to come through and timing it well. Talk to me. Obviously, there was some pressure, no doubt, at that time, at the back end of your university degree. Was there some pressure to join the family business? What was that like?
Well, I think it was a bit of... I have to be very fair. My parents never said to me, you have to come and work in the business, ever. They were always about, I want you to study, I want you to open up your mind, I want you to do what you really want to do. But in saying that, when you sit down with your grandparents and your parents, and we're always talking about fresh produce, there's a bit of an understanding that you may just fall into it. But I was never pushed, never pushed. So I was lucky enough with not long to go on my degree. I was taken in by Goldman Sachs JB Weir at the time, and they had a position which came up within the futures desk. So literally, I was writing out trades as a young junior, as they'd be putting these multi-million-dollar trades through in the futures market. So I was seeing what real money was, how serious dollars were moved in the real world. You don't learn that at university.
Because we're not talking about a couple of $1,000s. We're not talking $100,000. We're talking millions. And
hundreds of millions. It was a big eye opener for a young, 20-year-old. So immediately I was awoken to the opportunities that were present in the world outside of bananas. Bananas are only $2 or $3 or $4 a kilo, remember? So. Well,
I guess that's the key point, because you can find so many people, they look at the family business, they're like, far out, there you are working your ass off selling, $4 bananas, or $4 a kilo, where the real money is made in the world of finance, right? So that would have been a really interesting experience for you to, come back to the world of fresh produce.
Absolutely. So I spent some time at Goldman's in futures, and I met an intelligent man. His name was Dennis Navin. He worked within the private wealth management arm of Goldman Sachs JB Weir at the time, and he was looking for an analyst. And after many interviews, he took me on board, and I got pulled out of the rotational system, and I earned myself a full-time role at Goldman's. Working with this gentleman. Who I'm still very good friends with today. Very, very intelligent man. We got on extremely well, and he taught me so much about more structuring, strategy, and discipline of work. So, importantly, I think a big difference between when some, families, the generations transcend from one to the other. Work discipline may potentially lack due to, not being exposed to having to work that hard to make the bacon, but basically. Dennis, obviously being in fresh produce from my family, the early hours, I was already accustomed to working hard, to work ethic. But Dennis really taught me those life, those lessons that you can move those lessons across from any discipline. But one who's got work ethic, I'll take them on my team any day of the week over a super intelligent person.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about that work ethic. You've mentioned early hours. You started at 5. you probably weren't doing early hours at 5, but what did it entail growing up in a family of fresh produce?
Yeah, well, my father didn't really have much time to come and see me, play sport of a weekend or of a night. Often we would be waiting for him to come home at 8 o'clock at night, and he'd left at 2 o'clock in the morning that morning. So, yeah, my father was. It's very hard to say that I've known anyone who works harder and is more dedicated to his, role within a business than what he is. His work ethic is by far unparalleled. It's very very important, I think, for someone who stands in my shoes to have had a father who presents those qualities, because you know that hard work drives you onto an achievement, and I think that I think that without having seen what it means to be successful from a work ethic point of view, I don't think that we would have gotten to where we are today, because it's very challenging out there. The business environment today is not what it was. 5 years ago. It's changed.
And look, I think you've mentioned something slightly which I think is super important to highlight. This might ruffle a few feathers in the world, but it's quite easy to be in your position, where your father potentially is a business owner, and you just come through and not necessarily translate or adopt that work ethic, or adopt the discipline that you learnt at Goldman, to then take it on to the next level to continue growing the business. What do you think it was? I mean, was it just the work ethic that you saw your dad demonstrate, or was there something else within that upbringing that had you make sure that you wanted to take this to the next level?
I think I'll talk a bit about Goldman's with that. So one thing that I didn't experience when, sort of growing up in a family business so much, but I did experience being at Goldman, is how you deal with people with authority in the business world. So, I was sitting in front of the CEO of National Australia Bank at the time, this young 20-year-old kid that I was, and across the table from me was one of Australia's most recognised business people, and the way in which you learn from the way that they carry themselves, they present themselves, they articulate themselves. I think that that these were key learnings as well that I never would have learned if I had just followed down the path and gone into, progressed into the fruit and veg shop in Rose Bay. I never would have picked up these skills, and taking that, and then translating it into our own business. I think it's helped us immensely in being able to make some serious business decisions. For example, when I had left Goldman's and gone back into the family business, we were still only retailers. And the family had sold the business in Rose Bay, so there was no Parisi at that point in time operated by the family. There was only Parisi's Food Hall, which was operated by the current team who's there. And by us leaping out as a startup again, we took on the store at Sydney Fish Market. That was the first step. Yes, we were very well known within the industry as being, one of the best traders in the industry of quality and great service. But we then stemmed out and said, we see a hole in fresh produce supply to top-end restaurants, hotels, and cruise ships. So we didn't have not one client the day we started. Today it represents up to 85% of our turnover.
How long ago was that when you first started the startup?
Yeah, 9 years ago.
9 years ago.
9 years ago now, yeah.
And now servicing really the top end of town, right? To put it into perspective, you're looking after the Maryvale groups, you're looking after a number of different high-end restaurants, right?
Yeah, look, a lot of the guys that you'd read about, in the Good Food Guide, for example, a lot of them we're supplying, and it's not even so much about how many clients you can supply, because it's very easy to go out there and really bastardize your price list and just
Absolutely.
sell anything for
Shotgun
nothing, and
approach.
you'll win business left, right, and center. Which there's many players out there that do that, and good for them if that's how they choose to run their business. But I think it's being able to supply the right clients and provide a service that matches them. So I think I mentioned when we started this conversation was our client base look to us for advice. We're not just supplying a carrot or a banana or an onion. They look to us, for innovation. They look to us for new ideas. So we invest quite a lot vertically we invest money back into farms in order to develop new products that can be used in particular venues, particular restaurants that you won't see on other menus.
Absolutely. And I think too, the key that I want to articulate is when we sort of brought it back to you just stepping into a business that, was family run. I mean, at 34, you're doing quite well to be the managing director. But what you articulated perfectly was the varied experience that you had from Goldman, not just being in a family business, not just inheriting, the work ethic that your father sort of brought on, but that varied experience of taking down or going down the route of education to then learn how to relate or how to sit in front of the CEO of National Australia Bank so that you can then liaise with clientele like the Merivale Group. Because I'm sure it's a different skill set to than being just a fresh food produce.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because that's where the bigger deals are done, right? It's in the office. And no doubt a lot of your time these days is not so much waking up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. packing fruit, I presume, but it's more so managing the deals and arranging, clientele. Would that be right?
Yeah, you're right. As business evolves, I've done my many, many years of, of labour, and continuously we oversee, the quality of the product, and, still my father and my brother-in-law, and there's another two who are involved in the purchasing. So that's a big part of our business, of course, and will always be. But me, myself, you're right. I need to spend a lot of time, speaking to the right people, aligning our business with the right businesses. When doing great things like sitting down with you, mate.
No, exactly right, mate. I wanted to chat to you a little bit about, some of the challenges that the businesses may have faced, because no doubt you're servicing cruise ships and restaurants, which all got decimated throughout COVID. But before then, if you were able to summarize in a couple of sentences, what do you think was the key to success, not only to Julian, but the Parisi brand? What do you think the key to success was?
Do you mean prior to the COVID?
Yeah, prior to the COVID. Yeah, nothing to do with COVID.
Oh, look, I think key to success would be align yourself with a motto and stay true to that. So if you say that I want to be the best supplier of produce to the leading restaurants in Sydney, and I'm going to supply the best possible product, then stay true to that. Don't venture out and say, I want to supply the best restaurants in Sydney, and then off the back of that, say that I also want to be supplying the jails, because we're talking about two different requests. So I think that you need to be true to your business motto, and I think that was something that we set out. We were very clear about where we found there was a gap in the market, and we know that what we do very well is gain access to the best quality product, in the country, and service goes with it, partly because of the passion that we have for it. But yeah, I think that there's no question the success was driven by us being able to identify a gap in the market and staying true to that.
And was that something that you brought to the table? I mean, I can't imagine I know I look at sort of my WOG parents. They probably wouldn't have sat there going, what particular space are we going to target? Is that something you brought to the table, or is that something that also your dad was very clear on? No, we want to focus on targeting high end?
Look, I think collectively, we have conversations regularly about where the business is moving to, what we want to be doing. But we mutually agreed as to where we thought there was a gap, in the marketplace. I'm very lucky that over years that my father's put a lot of trust in me and allowed me to make decisions for our company.
Yeah.
To move ourselves into various directions, whether it be online or whether it be through pushing in wholesale or start supplying ships in other states and set up a catering business. We're doing some work with an IT business at the moment where we import a bit of product, from Europe at the moment, dabbled in export. So all these decisions that, that we make as a business, I'm fortunate that my father supports me and the management team 100% and, never holds us back. So.
And what percentage would you say now is the online business for you?
So wholesale would make up 85% because it's a bulky piece. The margins are quite thin. So, it depends if you're talking about turnover or if you're talking. No, but it's
from a turnover perspective. 85% is wholesale.
So the remaining is retail, catering, and online. Yeah.
Yep.
So you can see that from no wholesale clients to 9 years later, you can see that our growth and our identification of a space in the market was clear.
And with the online, is the strategy targeting a slightly different clientele? Is it the mums and dads at home, or what's the strategy there?
So online, we've got gifting online, and then we've got fresh produce for online. So online fresh produce is for families, and it's delivered to your door in a COVID-safe manner. But the gifting is twofold. It's B2B. So we'll partner with Brett Kelly, for example.
Yeah.
And Brett will say, I want to run a campaign this month for all clients that have been with us for the last 5 years. I want each of them to get a Parisi gift box. So he'll place an order for, hundreds of gift boxes, which need to be executed within a 2-week period. And that's B2B. So, he'll be partnering with a brand like ourselves, and then we'll wrap a couple of other things into the picks. He uses Soho flowers.
Yeah.
Poho, not Soho. Poho flowers. And Pommery champagne, for example, and then we'll execute on all the logistics, including the Parisi, gift box.
Okay.
So we take care of all of that, and then we've got many other corporate clients that we work with. Similarly, Ray White, for example. So for their when their clients have got a sale, there's a settlement gift. Perfect. So we send out gift packages on their behalf as well. So there's many relationships that we've got in the corporate space, and then business to consumer, the chocolate fruit is the big winner. So we sell chocolate fruit boxes, direct to consumers. It's a big hit.
And was that part of the business set up before COVID hit, or was that as a result of COVID?
No, that was prior to, but as a result of COVID, what exploded quite quickly. It's fallen back immensely now, but exploded was the home delivery business.
Interesting.
People were at home, didn't want to get the product delivered to the door. And people had money during COVID. People had money. They
weren't eating out, were they?
Exactly. So they were happy to spend a little bit extra on getting the best quality product delivered to their door. So we saw our online business really tick up. But as the borders reopened and people were happy to go out again, then we slowly saw that part of the business fall back. But the wholesale, is now back doing better numbers than it was pre-COVID, which is great.
Right. And I suspect because of COVID, wholesale would have taken a hit as well when people aren't eating at restaurants. And there's effectively no cruise ships.
Yep.
I imagine that would have taken a bigger hit.
Yep. Some restaurants decided to do, their own, takeaway style, but represented less than 20% of their previous turnover. So it wasn't really a substantial part of our wholesale business.
Yeah.
We're fortunate in the sense that that we had diversified our business so well that we were able to juggle the difficulties of COVID, whereas other 100% wholesalers in fresh produce, they weren't in that position. They literally had to close their doors. So, we're fortunate. Our staff, our management team, we're all very fortunate to be able to continue working, And what we did was, our operations manager, there were days that he wasn't managing operations. He was out doing delivery driving, but, delivering produce boxes to people's doors. But he still had a job.
Yeah.
And that's what's important. And that's what I think is important of a company, to have your key people understand that they've got a secure job, they've got families, they've got mortgages. You need to provide that, for them.
And I think, I presume too, in a family-run business, there's a greater sense of ownership culture as well. So no doubt at that point, the operations manager is like, I'm happy to put my hand up, keep my job, and go and make some deliveries.
Absolutely.
So I think that would have made a difference.
Yep.
Now, you're a finance guy, obviously, by training. And so one thing I've heard from a lot of other businesses is, our turnover is higher than what it was pre-COVID. What do you think the methodology is behind that? What do you think the economics is behind that? Why are we seeing such a rebound? And what's your thoughts on, I guess, what's to come?
Yeah. So retail is not up on COVID because we're in locations where there was a high tourist clientele, and those tourists are not here. Borders closed.
Right.
People aren't really traveling as much, sort of state by state. Versus, even obviously people from overseas, they're not coming. So retail is definitely not doing the numbers that it was pre-COVID. Naturally in those particular sites, but people are eating out, and they're eating out. I find a lot more than they were pre-COVID. I think that corporates are starting to do the entertaining again, which is great to see, and. We're fortunate that we've aligned ourselves with particular companies, for example, Merivale, who have got a growth trajectory of opening. I think it's very evident to read in the paper. I think Merivale bought, five assets in the last sort of 6 weeks. So, we're fortunate that we're aligned with companies who are on a growth trajectory of very aggressive growth trajectory. So
and look, I'm really excited about the trajectory for Australian businesses in general. So it's great that you're aligned with businesses that are investing further into that. I think when you think of COVID, as a country we're doing remarkably well in comparison to the world. So I think on the back of that, Australia will be a place that people want to continue to invest in. And that only means increased trade for you, particularly in a necessary space. So that's a fantastic opportunity. But let's chat about your industry in specific. Any sort of challenges that you're seeing at the moment that you think might needs a shake up on, or is there something that Parisi is doing a little bit differently, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, look, with regards to challenges, I think if you step back and look at the market with regards to food service, the ship industry, which is a massive piece of the pie, isn't around. The airlines are not operating nowhere near to the numbers that they were. Just these two, levers mean that you're going to have competitors who were in that space. They've got assets, they've got machines that aren't being fed. So they need to start getting aggressive in other areas, i.e. they need to start looking at supplying hotels, they need to start looking at supplying restaurants, hospitals, childcare centres, for example. So all of a sudden, the food service industry was quite segregated in the sense that everyone was aware of who sort of supplied who. But now, because you've got a big piece of the client base which has been removed due to COVID, you now have got immense competition. So what happens? The competitors need cash flow. They either need cash flow or they're going to fold. In order to do that, it creates noise. it creates noise within industry because growers are getting pushed down on price. They're being told that they need to be selling a product for a certain price because you've got people who are going in on business severely cheaply because they need turnover. They need to keep the machine fed. I think this is a very short-term problem because ultimately large companies who are doing business, they've aligned themselves with businesses who have been around for a long time. So these short-term sort of waves, I think they will flatten out. But at the moment, I think that's, if you want to ask a challenge, that's a challenge that you face at the moment. Is competition that wasn't there 2 years ago.
So you're just finding that increased competitiveness that wasn't there 2 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
yep.
I suspect that sort of leads into quite well. You mentioned that you invest into the growers yourself. Talk to us a little bit about how you guys do that and what benefit you see that as being.
So look, growers for me of many, many years, I think that they've had a lack of transparency. And for me, honesty and integrity is, they're two pillars of business. And I think growers need to know more. I think they've been kept out of the light as to what things are sold for, what they should be paid back on certain products, and I think technology can help a lot with that. Provenance is very important these days. For those listeners that aren't aware of provenance is identifying where basically something is grown, how it's grown, and how it gets from one place to another. So growers can help provide all that information, and a consumer would absolutely love knowing all that information.
Absolutely.
Technology can help immensely with that. So we're in a position now, a beautiful sweet spot where we can provide honesty, transparency, and integrity to both growers and the consumer. And the piece in the middle is technology. So bordering that gap is going to really strengthen business and really strengthen your relationship with your customer. So that's what I'm very excited about.
And I suspect one of the strengths that you mentioned earlier is the customer service that you guys are well known for, or that reputation of being very good traders in Australia. Is technology an enabler for you to provide better customer service to the end consumer?
Absolutely. Yep.
And how are you doing that? How does it look tangibly?
Yeah. So, when we, at the moment we're designing the new retail outlet at Sydney Fish Market. It's 2.5, 3 years away.
Yeah.
Imagine this. Why could you not use a smartphone with a QR code on top of a stack of carrots, for example, and your phone then tells you where that carrot was grown, when it was picked, how it got from the farm to that store. So technology for me is going to breach that difference, and these are the things that we're looking at within our business. For example, for the new store at Sydney Fish Market, I won't give you all the info because there's a lot of there's a lot of interesting things that we're trying to achieve there. But that's one of the things that I want to help consumers and help growers, and we can do that in store and take that away. And I think that little things like that are they give customers confidence about who they're dealing with, integrity.
And what I love about that, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, it's about the story that you're providing to the clients. It's a great story from where Parisi have come from, being a family-run business, family-led and built business, but to be able to give the consumer the story as to where this has originated from, I guess the love and care that goes into this particular banana, that's what people want to hear. And it doesn't matter, I don't care what industry you're in, you can't tell me that the consumer doesn't care where it comes from. Because I think particularly in Australia, sure, our disposable incomes are probably higher than a few of the other countries, but we've got a particular interest in knowing where this is being sourced. So I think that's a significant advantage that you guys are doing well in.
Yeah, thank you.
Talk to me a little bit about the vision for Parisi as a brand, as a company. Where is it heading?
I see immense opportunity in our gifting business. We still will be continuing to expand our retail presence in select locations, and that means retail conceptually. So it doesn't mean just more of the same fruit and veg shops. It means we want to be bringing concepts. Ideally we'd like to be opening up within facilities whereby we're combined with 6 or 7 other traders who are the best at what they do. I think that's going to set apart why a consumer will walk into independent retailers versus going to a Woolworths or Coles.
Absolutely.
So our drive and motivation in retail is stronger than ever. We're looking to employ good people. So we want to keep growing the management team and keep growing the platform of people that work with us. On the wholesale front, we're going to continue to stay true to what we believe, which is providing the best quality product, and we won't be changing that. We won't be moving that. Do we move from state to state because we've got our clients that are buying properties in various locations? The answer to that is yes. So if we need to be moving, it's more about the exciting opportunity to be moving. For example, up to Queensland or down to Victoria or South Australia, then we'll be doing that. So
from a logistics standpoint, it makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a bright future. For us, we're a very young team actually. So within the management team, I think I'm the oldest out of the team actually. So I've got cousins and brother-in-laws and family friends involved with us, and and I want them to be with us in 20 years' time.
Yeah.
So we've definitely got the legs in us, put it that way.
Now, great that you've got a young leadership team, but not many people set out after school wanting to enter the fresh food produce business.
Very true.
And you've mentioned you were looking to build a team, right? I know this very well, being in an industry that no one jumps into. What is it that you're going to do to find the best talent to make sure that you continue providing the best service?
Yeah. I think the most challenging thing is when you've got someone extremely capable, they often want to go out and do something for themselves. And I want to build an environment whereby I can have great people working within our business who build a business within our business that ultimately they identify that they are better off working within our infrastructure and growing a business under our umbrella rather than doing it on their own. And that means they need to be rewarded, they need to be motivated, they need to be provided with challenges, they need incentives. And that's what we within Parisi are doing to keep these people. That's what we're doing.
And how big is the company at the moment? How many employees?
So pre-COVID, over 100.
Yep.
And we're shy of that now due to COVID because we closed a couple of stores in the city.
Yeah. But look, the value is in that exactly. I'm a big believer of ownership culture, in the sense that the people that work for your team need to buy into what the brand is doing. Otherwise, why would they not just, do something else, enter a different industry, or go down the road and start their own thing? So I'm a big believer of establishing that ownership culture through whatever mechanism or structure you decide to take. So I think that's fantastic. What's your vision for the industry as a whole, more so? It's something that you're obviously quite passionate about, and it's something I enjoy talking about, in the sense that you touched on briefly how the likes of, the bigger Woolies and Coles would start to, I guess, shark growers on pricing, and really, in some instances, killing industries. I'm kind of frustrated and over going into Coles and Woolies and seeing it all their brand, and that's where they're heading, right? That's what they're pushing. But what are you doing to combat that? Where's the industry heading?
So Woolworths supply insurance as well, I believe.
They do.
Look, where is our industry going? 65%, rough numbers, are consumed through the doors of fresh produce are consumed through the doors of Woolies, Coles, Audi. That number will be growing. They're continually expanding stores. So beyond that 65%, the remaining part is really it's food service, which is the whole piece, and then independent retailers. So the numbers show that as time goes on, if young people are not coming through the fresh produce industry, then it will get eaten up by the chain stores, and there may come a time in 20 years where you won't be able to buy a piece of fruit unless it is on a supermarket shelf. So it's important for me to spend time identifying growers who we work with and investing in these farms to always keep present and have access to supply, because I think that the Independent Industry Association will never want to have a DC where we all go and pick up fresh produce, from a Woolworths or a Coles, warehouse, because that's just, there's no longevity in that.
Exactly.
But I think us independents, in addition to the food service industry, need to stay true to what we do. And I think that we need to continually connect. And I think the way in which we will set ourselves apart is through honesty and integrity with the growers. Because we need to all remember, without the growers, we have nothing. So the growers are the most important piece in all of this. So if you can show the growers why it's so important that they're supplying the independents versus only supplying the chain stores, then the next 100 years, we're always going to see independent produce businesses. And food service will always flourish.
Mate, I know this is a bit of a long bow to pull, but I'm a bit of a health and fitness fan, and I'm a big believer of quality produce. And I was just in the physio the other day. He was looking at my shoulder, and he's like, "Look, mate, if you asked me this 8 years ago, I would have thought that a good diet is a bit woo-woo and don't worry about it. But now, absolutely, if you want to fix this shoulder, eat the right food." And I can openly say that the produce that you get in an independent is going to be far greater than what you're going to get in a Woolies or a Coles. I might shoot down this podcast eventually, but I'm just going to put it out there. So I think it's super important that you guys are, waging a war against, non-independent growers. So I think what you guys are doing is fantastic, and I hope it continues to be successful.
Thank you.
Mate, it's been great to have you on the show, Julian. A couple of things. Do you have any plugs, any of your socials that you want to mention? Parisi, you're obviously on Instagram.
Yeah, Parisi Australia is our our social piece through Instagram and Facebook. We run, we've got chefs, clients of our own who are we do 5 minutes with Julian, and they talk about their life and what they love to do and their passions. And I think, once again, it's about community, being able to all share an experience, and I think that's important.
Absolutely. So, guys, head on over and check out Julian's page, Parisi. Is it Parisi Australia?
Correct,
Yep. Parisi Australia, and you'll see his 5 minutes with Julian, which always gets a laugh with the ladies. Yeah. But it's a great little shot of, speaking to the likes of Neil Perry and the like. So, definitely highly recommend tuning in. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Mate, appreciate it, Julian.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Socius, thank you for joining us today. Please hit the subscribe button if you've enjoyed this episode. And if you'd like to be part of the Socius community, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay in touch. Cheers.